Today's explorer brings us to the town of Fredericksburg, south-southwest of the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. We've come to Chatham Manor. Built in 1771, it is among America's earliest large estate homes. Situated upon a bluff on the east side of the Rappahannock River, overlooking the town of Fredericksburg to the west. As we make our way from the car park, one of the first structures we come across is the carriage house. There's even an early feeding station for the horseless carriages the owners began to acquire when the 20th century arrived. Behind it is what appears to be a corn crib. Here are some of the estate's support buildings, this one being the kitchen. Notice the outline of the portico that once surrounded the entrance. The gardens, as you see them today, are the result of the efforts of Helen and Daniel DeVore. Purchasing the home in 1920, the DeVores spent significant resources renovating and transforming the property, turning the place around both figuratively and literally. In addition to updating the interior, they made the front of the home the back, and the back the front. The porticos that once surrounded several entrances were removed, thought to be too old-fashioned. As we approach the present-day front of the home, we find its elegant and well-kept gardens. The estate once encompassed over 1,200 acres. Over the last 250 years, it's been reduced to just 30 acres. Chatham grew and prospered during the days of slavery. When the American Civil War broke out, James and Betty Lacey owned the home. The two were sympathetic to the Confederate cause. James Lacey joined the Confederate Army, leaving Betty behind to tend the plantation. When the Union Army approached the home in 1862, she packed up and abandoned Chatham, leaving it empty. The U.S. Army found it a fine place to set up headquarters during the Battle of Fredericksburg. When the fighting broke out, the home became a field hospital. It suffered badly when used by the Army. When the Laceys returned to Chatham after the war, they found their lifestyle and wealth gone. They sold the house. 50 years and 8 owners later, Chatham's fortunes began to change. It regained some of its lost elegance in the early 20th century during the Roaring '20s. Over its life, it's seen visits from the likes of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Clara Barton, and Walt Whitman. It was 1920 when Helen and Daniel DeVore purchased the property. The DeVores transformed Chatham Manor from a former slave plantation into a showy country retreat more appropriate to the wealthy of the Roaring 1920s. Today, the home presents very much as it was renovated by the DeVores. I've moved around to the back side of the home, the side that faces the river, which was originally the home's front. I find signs of the early 20th century upgrades. And I found this sort of hidden alcove that goes back into the hedge line. It looks like it might lead out toward the river. Sure enough, it is from this bluff where one gets a superb view of the town of Fredericksburg across the Rappahannock, a view that is nearly identical to that of a Union soldier in 1862. The Rappahannock River, which was a source of power and transportation, was nothing but an obstacle to the Union Army in 1862. An obstacle that Union General Burnside decided to cross using pontoon bridges. But the Confederate forces occupying the town were not going to make that easy. As the day dawned on the morning of 11 December 1862, Union engineers had been working through the night, floating and lashing pontoons together. However, as darkness fell away to the light of day, the Union engineers made easy targets for the Confederate sharpshooters, hiding in the many doors and windows of town buildings. The Union Army's solution? Bombard the town and destroy the Confederate hiding places. At 9 a.m. that morning, over 180 pieces of artillery, some of which were placed along this very bluff, roared to life. Before it was over 6,000 shells had been poured into the town, leaving it in rubble. The bombardment slowed but did not stop the Confederate snipers. Despite the harassment by the Confederates, by late afternoon, the Union Army had completed the bridge, and troops began to pour into the town. And while the river was no longer an obstacle, the town and the heights beyond would prove to be even more formidable than the Rappahannock. But that is an entirely separate story. Here's a replica of the pontoon bridge. Definitely a temporary structure. Basically, the bridge floated atop a series of pontoons, lashed together and anchored to the river bottom. Under ideal conditions, engineers could construct a bridge in a couple of hours. It is somewhere down there that the Union Army successfully spanned the river with their pontoon bridge and made it successfully into Fredericksburg. Abandoned by the owners as the Union Army approached, Chatham Manor suffered greatly during the Union Army occupation and during the Civil War years in general. When the owners returned after the war, they were left in financial ruin. They sold the plantation in 1872. It passed through 8 owners over the next 50 years and continued to slowly decline. When the DeVores purchased the property in 1920, they immediately began substantial renovations and improvements. They added the Greek Revival gardens you saw out front, and this music-themed stairway honoring the 1823 song, Home Sweet Home. Remember, the riverside was originally the home's front. With the changes made by the DeVores, this became the back. This involved removing what was felt to be the outdated, ornate porticos that once accented the home's front entrance. The shadow of this architectural detail can still clearly be seen today. The grounds are an absolute pleasure to stroll and roam, dotted with pleasant details such as this image of Flora, the Roman goddess of spring. Take a guess as to what this is for. The sign says this catalpa tree has been here since the Civil War. Considering their lifespan is around 60 years, it's no wonder this one needs a little help. Here's the laundry building, which dates to the earliest days of the home, and a summer house, which is part of the Devore updates during the 1920s. Behind the laundry building, archaeologists discovered the foundation of the estate's smokehouse, outlined today by these 4 posts. Chatham Manor was built in 1771 on the cusp of the American Revolutionary War and the birth of the United States. Built by William Fitzhugh, he placed it atop Stafford Heights here on the east side of the Rappahannock River to make sure the citizens of Fredericksburg understood his wealth and status. In those early years, the plantation was prosperous. There were at least 100 slaves working and maintaining the estate. However, Fitzhugh maintained a rather highbrow lifestyle as he hobnobbed with society's elite. After 35 years of entertaining the rich and famous and making poor financial decisions, Fitzhugh had successfully exhausted his wealth. With few options, he sold his beloved home. Chatham Manor has overlooked the Rappahannock River for more than 250 years. Built in a very different era, an era of horse-drawn carriages, oil lamps, and British rule. It saw the arrival of automobiles, electricity, and indoor plumbing. It's endured changes in social norms, customs, and standards. Blessed with success in its early years, nearly lost to war and the mismanagement of numerous owners. It fortunately regained some former elegance, but the unrelenting passage of time has turned her into a relic from a long-gone era. Fortunate for us, it is now preserved under the auspices of the National Park Service and hopefully will remain for many generations to come. All right, we're here just leaving the Chatham Gardens and house on the Rappahannock in Fredericksburg. What do you rate it, Karen?
I would rate it a 10.
10. It's pretty good. 9.975.
Okay, you got it.
10. It's good enough. It's very good. And with that, remember, life is a journey. Enjoy the ride, and thanks for watching.